What is up, everyone? This is Nishi from MST TV here. In today's episode, I am bringing you guys my investment recommendations for the September 2019 format. This one's pretty straightforward. I want to talk to you guys about the cards I think you should be picking up in the next little while, because I feel like they are going to go up in price in the upcoming format for one reason or another. Some of them I think are going to see an increase in play, whereas others, future products are coming out later this year or they're going to come out within the next little while that I think are going to push certain card prices up. Therefore, whether you guys want to play a certain deck or you simply want the opportunity to flip cards, these are definitely cards that I would recommend picking up sooner rather than later. Now, quick disclaimer here, these cards are just my personal opinion based on how I look at the game. Obviously, I have my very own unique ways of looking at card prices and trends, which is how I come to these conclusions. But of course, you guys should absolutely be doing your own research and thinking for yourselves as much as possible before you decide to buy into any given card. Now, one other thing I want to note here is that I actually tried to stay away as much as possible from older extra deck cards or side deck cards at the moment. Typically, cards like that are really good pickups because they're generic and they can be used in a lot of different decks in a lot of different formats. However, with Dual Devastator coming out later this year, a lot of staples and extra deck cards are going to be getting reprinted, so I'm avoiding talking about any cards here for that reason. However, with the Megatons dropping soon, Fist of the Gadgets and Link Evolution just coming out, and then sets like Chaos Impact and Mystic Fighters coming out later this year, there's definitely a lot of opportunity that we should try to capitalize on. So yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so first up on the list, I'm actually going to talk about an entire engine rather than just a single card, and that is the Invoked engine. Personally, I am a really big fan of this engine, and I think it's going to be very, very strong moving forward. Now, when Dark Ruler No More finally is released into the format when the Megatons drop, I think that a key strength for decks is going to be the ability to keep resources in hand for following turns while still being able to establish board presence. Dark Ruler No More is a really good card. It negates the effects of all monsters on the field, and you can really break boards with it. However, you can't end the game the turn that you use it. Therefore, you will have the following opportunity to make a counterplay during the next turn. The Invoked engine is very, very strong in that regard, right? You can summon Alistair, Search Invocation, and you summon Mechaba, which is a very strong body. It's a negate on the board, but you also have the ability to recur the Alistair back to your hand, which sets up an entire fusion play for the following turn. The engine is also very, very efficient, right? You only need to have Alistair or Magical Meltdown in your hand to fully utilize the entire engine. So in picking up this engine, I think we are looking at 3 Magical Meltdown, 3 Alistair the Invoker, 3 Invocation, 1 or 2 copies of Invoked Mechaba, and then whatever other fusion monsters that you decide you want to play. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to pick up the deck in max rarity, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to go pick up Ulti or Secret Invocations by any means, but you can pick up like a cheap copy of the entire engine for around $30. Invocation Super Rare is the only like expensive card, and that's around $7 a piece, but the rest is very, very cheap. But yeah, as far as engines or deck cores go, the Invoked engine is one that's incredibly affordable that I do expect to see do really, really, really well in the upcoming format. Alright, now let's take a look at Salamangreat Almiraj. I believe that this card is incredibly underrated and underutilized at the moment, and that this card is actually sitting well below its market value in terms of price. I definitely think that the card is going to see a lot more play in the upcoming meta, right? Like in Fire Fist, this card is important because it helps put Raven into the graveyard to proc its effect, which gets you tanky and kind of gets the whole deck going. In Invoked, this help puts Alistair into the graveyard, and then we even saw it played in Altergeist, as it can put Sangan into the graveyard to get that search off. Also, it does provide additional utility both while it's on the field and in the graveyard. These effects are kind of like situational, but they are definitely worth remembering, and they mean that Almiraj actually provides a lot of utility. Now, at the time I'm making this video, Almiraj is currently sitting at only around $10. Honestly, I think that this card is far too cheap right now for the key role that it plays in a very highly anticipated deck like Fire Fist, and that's without taking into consideration the other decks that this card is inevitably going to see play in. I can very easily see this card being eaten off the market over the next couple of weeks and then eventually settling at like that $15 to $20 price point. Remember, this card was one of the harder cards to pull from Battles of Legend, which is definitely going to be a factor as there are limited quantities available on the market. Next, let's take a look at World Legacy Monstrosity. This is a spell card from Dark Neostorm, and it has two different effects. One that lets you special summon a level 9 monster from your hand, and another that lets you special summon 2 from your deck if you already control a level 9 monster. But the ones from your deck have to have different types and attributes from the one you currently control. They can't attack and they're destroyed during the end phase. So this card has recently seen play in Dino True King decks, I believe, because you can make Trishula and then you play this to summon out the True Kings and like a Kaiju monster in order to make True King of all calamities very easily. And that deck does play Ib, so this card is even searchable. Now, the reason I'm talking about this card for now is that we will be getting Generaids imported to the TCG in November later this year in Mystic Fighters, and I believe that this is a card that will inevitably creep up in price since Generaid is a deck that revolves a lot around these level 9 monsters. Now, this isn't to say that the deck is necessarily going to be good. A lot of the time when we have new archetypes coming out, a card that would theoretically be good in that deck will increase in price even if the new deck is going to be bad. Now, I don't think this card is going to be reprinted in Mystic Fighters either, given how recently the card came out. I mean, like, realistically, I don't see that reprint coming up until next year's Megatins, very similarly to how World Legacy Succession was treated. Personally, like, I've been picking up this card wherever possible for like $2 a piece, and its current market price is only $2 to $3. I don't know how high this card is going to necessarily spike, especially because Generaid doesn't look to be very strong in the OCG right now. But people also said really similar things about World Legacy Succession when that card first came out, so who knows. Alright, next up we have kind of a weird one, but we're going to talk about Gemini Spark. Now, I've always been a really big fan of this card because I think that fundamentally, this card is just like ridiculously strong. It's a quick play spell, which is honestly like the strongest type of card in the game. It also provides a draw, and there's no restriction as to what card on the field it destroys. For Geminis, which are a card type that has been really underdeveloped in the TCG, this card is just amazing. So I'm looking at this card because of the upcoming release of the Warrior Strike structure deck whenever it comes to the TCG. We only know a couple of cards from the deck, but they do look pretty strong. There's a continuous trap that lets you summon a Gemini from the deck with its effect, and then a level 4 monster that lets you bring out a Gemini from your graveyard. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be doubtful about the new structure deck because we've had fairly few good Gemini cards in the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh! However, Gemini Spark will most likely be a very good card in that deck, and at the moment there's only one holo printing available, and that's from an old Astral pack. Honestly, like, the price ceiling of this card depends on how good the new cards are, and it's not necessarily going to be like a $10 to $20 card. I could see it hitting $5 pretty easily if the deck is at least somewhat viable. At the moment, Gemini Spark is only like a $1 card, so if you can trade some like cheap throwaway cards for them, or if you can add a couple of copies to your lot to finish off a trade, I would definitely recommend trying to grab them, because of all the Gemini cards that are currently available in the game, I'm confident that this is among like the top best of them. Okay, so now we have another Link monster here in Psyframe Lord Lambda. Now, Lambda is a card that, in my opinion, thoroughly outclasses both Beat Cop and Land for Hindkist. It's considerably bigger than either of the others two in terms of attack points, and its summoning condition is almost like just as easy to meet. Another thing is that, looking at the trends in the OCG, Psyframe Gear Gamma is a really popular, strong side deck card, and for good reason. It stops any activated monster effect, and it also puts 2 bodies onto the board. Now, Lambda is a really key card for that, because it allows you to use Gamma even if you already have monsters on the board. This lets you stop your opponent's hand traps like Nibiru. It makes comboing a lot easier because you don't have to worry about your board being destroyed. Also, just because like it's so easy to summon, you can make it like most likely before you've committed 5 summons to the field at all. Now, in terms of price point, we're currently looking at around $9 for Lambda. I feel like this is kind of like the lowest that we're gonna see for this card in quite a while. It did peak at around like $15. However, with how great the arrows are, how strong it is, and a likely increase in the use of Gamma over the coming month, combined with the fact that it was another short print from Battles of Legend, I'm definitely expecting this card to jump up to around $20. Okay, so this is another one that's a little bit random, but I actually do think that Xcode Talker is something that's going to be going up in price at least a little bit. So this card is like decent. It has the ability to lock down your opponent's monster zones, and it can also protect your own monsters. So I guess it is a bit of a cute card. Now, I'm not saying that Cyberse is going to be meta by any means. However, just because the deck isn't good doesn't mean that people aren't going to try and buy out cards for the deck. Now, Xcode Talker currently only has 1 printing, and that's in Extreme Forces. It wasn't reprinted in the Megatins, and it is played as a one-of in the Cyberse deck. Now, with Fist of the Gadgets and the Link Evolution video game bringing a lot of Cyberse cards into the TCG, I am pretty confident that a lot of people are going to want to play Cyberse with all of the leftover Cyberse cards that they might have pulled from searching for Fire Fist, and gradually the quantities of Xcode Talker will be gradually taken off the market. So if you're looking to play Cyberse, or maybe you have a bunch of Fist of the Gadgets packs and you open them looking for Fire Fist stuff and you want to move your Cyberse core as a whole, I would definitely be picking up your copies of Xcode Talker while they're really cheap. Alright guys, the last one that we're going to talk about here is going to be a bit different from the type of recommendation that I usually make, because I'm generally not really like very big on investing in higher dollar meta cards. However, I really strongly believe that Appaloosa is going to be climbing up in price over the coming months as we get back into the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh season. Honestly, this card is like just absolutely ridiculous. Its ability is once per chain, not once per turn, so it can negate multiple things in the same turn. Also, its only summoning requirement is that it's 2 monsters with different names to make as a rank 4. So you can use 2 rank 2s, or a rank 3 and a rank 1, or you can use 4 different monsters, and you can still get to put multiple negates onto the board. It can be used to negate really important hand traps like Nibiru as well. Now currently, Appaloosa is a $50 card. However, I think that we will definitely see an increase in the demand for this card as more and more events happen and people realize that like all the top deck lists are going to be playing this card. I've said this before, but I call this card the going first Borrelsword Dragon. Like, Borrelsword is the go-to monster for when you're going second and you want to OTK your opponent. Appaloosa is the go-to monster for when you're going first and you want to set up multiple negates. I can very easily see this card going right up to like $70 or $80, right around where Borrelsword Dragon peaked at. Now, one thing to note, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to pick up this card in its like prismatic alternate rare form, and that you even like have to pick up a lot of copies of it. However, if you are looking to play Yu-Gi-Oh over the next little while, this is definitely a card that I would be grabbing soon because it is going to be a very key card, and I'm definitely expecting to see it spike within the next few months. Alright guys, that is it for this video. Hopefully it's given you guys a few ideas for cards that you can pick up within the next little while, and hopefully I'll be right about at least something. Now, I know that a lot of you guys are eager to hear from me a bit about the Megatins, and I promise I will do my best to drop something sometime this weekend. I will, however, also be discussing more things in depth next week, as I really want to see what's actually included in the Megatin and in what rarities before I make too many recommendations as to what cards I think you guys should be picking up. However, just so that you guys know, I will definitely be discussing what cards from the Megatins I would be buying, what cards I think are going to be the chase cards, and of course discussing the cards that aren't going to be reprinted, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But anyways, that is it from me for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to comment down below and let me know what cards you guys are looking to pick up in the next little while. I've actually taken over the channel from Tombox for the weekend since he is going to be going down to YCS Portland. So you guys are gonna have to put up with me for a little bit longer at least. But yeah, if you guys are playing at YCS Portland, good luck. We actually have a bunch of like people from Vancouver going down, so it should be a really fun event. Hopefully we'll see some people represent us and do really, really well. But yeah, also be sure to subscribe if you haven't, because I'm sure you guys want to see our discussions about the Megatins later this week, and Tombox is most definitely going to be coming back with plenty of coverage from YCS Portland as well. And as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.